much. So without further ado, we're going to dig into the research. So I'm going to share my screen and then start the PowerPoint show so that you can follow along. Let's see what's happening. Oops. Wonderful. Great. So I've had a lot of joy digging into these. And we have so much we could share, but we're going to start with what we can share in the time that we've got. So first of all, a little bit about what we've done and how we've done it. So we've worked with Savanta, and we worked with them before so that we could have as comparable a set of data as possible to the 2019 set. So where we can pick up trends. We've looked at the sort of you'll have an overview, particularly some of the activities compared. We're going to look at fringe parents. We're hoping to have a little look at the unreached parents, and we will have, if we have time, a little look at some of the active Christian parents. So first of all, how did we do this? So Savanta did a 15-minute online survey, quite a long one, with these parents. Now, the parents all had to have a child under the age of 5. So the children were aged 0 to 4. 1,425 parents completed the survey. There's a little boost sample in there. So for a couple of the slides, it's a slightly smaller survey number because it just needs to be, if you like, slightly more of a randomized survey so that we can, for the big numbers, so that we can see how we're doing and what we're reaching across the UK. The field work took place, believe it or not, just on the 12th to the 27th of May. So this is literally very hot off the press. So let's have a little dig. The first thing is, do you remember, some of you will have seen the research before, some of you won't have. So in 2019, we discovered that we had such a big reach of both active Christian parents, fringe parents and unreached parents. Let me explain those categories to you. The active Christian parents are people who are regularly worshipping in a church community at least once a month. They're also either reading their Bibles and praying. And we found in this group a real correlation between those who regularly worshipped and prayed and read their Bibles. There wasn't actually a big difference. So there's something very positive about parents, particularly this group of parents with children under the age of 5, and their spiritual practices. So we found a real correlation between regular church practice and these regular spiritual practices of Bible and prayer. So there's 13%, so that's gone up since 2019, who are meeting that active Christian parent category. And this is where we've dropped the boost so that we can actually have a look. So this is out of a sample of 1,221 parents with children under the age of 5. And then we have this huge, enormous reach again of 67% of parents with children who are under the age of 5 who are what we call fringe. So they are coming along to our activities, but there's a whole range in there of, if you like, of belief and practice. And so they're not active Christians, but they have a whole range of belief and practice. So they're the group we're really interested in, if you like, you have this group in your toddler groups. And so what the answers that they have to the questions is really, really interesting. So that gives us an enormous reach of 80%, 80% of parents with children under the age of 5 who are in touch with a church through our whole list of activities that we can have a look at in just a minute. And therefore, the unreached group has shrunk. So this correlates with a lot of the other research that's coming out at the moment. I expect many of you have heard of the Quiet Revival, which is showing that the church is actually growing, and it's particularly growing among a younger generation. And this we're seeing reflected again with the parents of children under the age of 5. And you'll see, I'll point out particularly where we're seeing, if you like, some of that, if you like, hunger for spiritual things that I've seen as I've gone through this research, which again is higher than it was in 2019. Great. Good, you're still with me? Activities compared. So we're going to have a little deep dive into what this 80% of people are doing and how they're related to us and what it is that the churches across the country, remember this is across all denominations, are up to, and how these parents with the children under the age of 5 are in touch with us. So you'll be absolutely thrilled to know that 55% of them are in touch with us through a toddler group, which is just fantastic news for all of you. So can I just say a really, really, really big well done for what you do, because what you do is actually making a tangible difference in the mission and growth of the church in the UK. I'm just going to say that one more time because it's so important. What you do as toddler group leaders is making a tangible difference to the mission and the growth of the church in the UK. So 55% of that group are actively part of a toddler group. There's other things people are part of: preschool playgroups, Christmas and Easter harvest, Fates, Carnivals, Fun Day, family services, baptisms, christenings, messy church, bubble church, Sunday worship. So some of these people are worshipping with us. And so there's 17% who do come along to Sunday worship, rainbows and other uniform groups, Sunday school, church holiday club, church choir. Other was 1%. So we mostly did get every way that these people could be in touch with a local church. And it's absolutely brilliant that 87% of them, see that at the bottom, are regularly in touch with us. So this is a regular commitment that they have with the church through all those activities. But a huge well done for the impact of the toddler group. Wonderful. We're now going to have a look at some of the what people think of the importance, particularly of things like Bible stories, and whether or not in toddler groups people think this is really important. So this is just, we've got a little comparison here as to what's going on in our toddler groups. We wanted to know what actually happens. What are you doing out there? So 81% of the active Christian parents who go to a toddler group said they remember a Bible story time, and 35% of the fringe parents say that they remember having, they encounter Bible stories in their toddler group. And 62% of all the fringe parents said that there was at least one Christian activity in the toddler group that they were going to. And 97% of the active Christian parents said that there was a Christian activity in the toddler group that they're going to. So that is really, really helpful for us. There's some, obviously, that don't have it, 31% that don't have any Christian content. We'd love to see that change, because we know that that can make a real difference both to the children and the parents. But well done. There's a real registering, particularly with the fringe parents and particularly with the active Christian parents, that there is Christian content, there's Bible stories and songs and prayers that are happening in our toddler groups. So well done. And we'd love to see when we do this again that 31% is completely down. But that's a really great curve. And then we thought we'd be really interested to know what fringe parents thought of, and unreached parents, remember that's an even further out group, they're the group who have no contact with us at the moment, think about basic Bible story knowledge and whether it's important for their children. So as you can see, 6 in 10 fringe parents and a third of unreached parents think that it is very or somewhat important for their children to have basic knowledge of Bible stories. That actually is a huge number of parents with children under the age of 5 who think it's important to have a basic knowledge of Bible stories for their children. This should really encourage us in putting that into our toddler group and every other aspect of our contact with these parents and their children who are under the age of 5. So they think it's really important. And you can also see there that so this is like the active Christian parents, obviously they're obviously going to want these things for their children. But look at this for the fringe parents, the basic Bible stories and Christian worship and exploring religious beliefs and prayer. They are interested. But look at this, even as we said in the unreached, there is almost a third of the unreached parents who actually do think a knowledge of Bible stories is important for their children. So when we get a bit later to looking at them, we'll see how that expands and see how we can connect to those we aren't yet in contact with. Great. So that was a little bit of an overview. We're now going to, if you like, take the lid off one of these groups, and we're going to look specifically at the fringe parents. So these are the parents who are attending. Remember, 87% of them are attending regularly. So firstly, preschool, playgroup and Sunday school are the activities most often attended regularly by children. So that's particularly by the children, not necessarily always with their parents. And so we know that we've got a huge reach. It's interesting to me that Sunday school is still so high. I'd love to know a bit more about, when you do research, you really want to do a little bit more research. Well, I'd actually like to know a little bit more about where and how Sunday school is still happening and who's doing that. Now, the next thing we looked at is what change there has been with the attending of toddler groups regularly with their children. And we can see really clearly that toddler group, that parents' activity they're attending, it's a little less frequently toddler group, but their children are attending Sunday school a little bit more, which is why I'd quite like to do a deep dive into what's happening within Sunday schools. But we've not got all of that today. I love this next slide. Would you stay with me for this one? This is some of the reasons that the fringe parents have decided to come along to what we're doing. Have a look at this. Oop. So, number one, just like we saw, if you remember, in 2019, they wanted their child to enjoy what they were coming to. And 47% in 2025 still said that was the big reason. But good values has gone up to 36%. But I want us to have a little look down here. Have a look at some of the changes around faith. So I wanted my child or children to have an awareness of God. 23% of the parents in 2025 said that they came along to these activities because they wanted their child to have an awareness of God. And that is a big jump from 16% in 2019. Have a look at this one. I wanted some Christian knowledge for my children. 18% is, again, a significant jump from 12%. And I love this one down here. I want my child to learn Bible stories. Again, it's a jump from 9% to 13%. They're not the biggest reasons. The biggest reason is still that the child would need to enjoy what's happening. And we need to remember that in everything that we do. That their child loves and wants to be there. And good values is really big, and friendship. All of these things are really powerful. But it's so fascinating to me that awareness of God, even a familiarity with church and Bible stories, has actually moved, and more people in 2025 are registering, if you like, a spiritual interest and needs for their children. Then we wanted to find out, how did the fringe parents find out about these activities? So how it is that they came along. The number one was through a friend. That's nothing unusual. We just know the power of friendship. Then it was social media channels. I'm sure many of you use those, but that shows again the power of what we can do from social media. But if you look, most of the contacts are human, if you like, they're personal. It's a friend, it's someone in the family, someone in my community, and even other parents, e.g. at nursery, who'd invited them along, a neighbour. So a lot of it is the power of the individual person. So who we meet and who we know. And so this shows us both what we do, but also how we empower all our active Christian parents and those ones regularly in church to be, if you like, the forefront of inviting. But actually, it can be a neighbour. We can empower our whole church to be on the lookout to invite people to our toddler group, even if they themselves aren't attending. There's real power in personal invitation. I love this one. You're doing a fantastic job in 2025 of welcoming parents with children under the age of 5 into all of those range of activities, be it a toddler group, a Sunday school, be it Christian churches Sunday worship. All of these activities, people are registering, look, very welcome or fairly welcome is the overwhelming response. So a huge well done to all of you, and a huge well done to the church for making parents with children under the age of 5 just so tremendously welcome. And then we love this one. What happens to the parents who come? Well, around half of the fringe parents feel helped to explore their beliefs by the activities that they attended. And this was both in 2019 and 2025. So this shows that when we have a mission field where we want to help those children, do you remember when Emma was sharing her story right at the beginning and the joy of singing them all singing Great Big God, we are also having an impact, of course, on their parents who are attending, who they themselves are beginning to explore their beliefs through these activities. What an extraordinary mission field that we have and that you are taking part in. And I love this now slide. There's a bigger and greater sense of belonging through what you're doing in toddler groups and Sunday church worship that's suitable for children and all the other things that's happening in church. More of these parents with children under the age of 5 are feeling, if you want, an association and an allegiance to church. I was discussing this with the researcher who helped with this research, and he was saying to me, we think maybe there is a growth. People predicted that people wanted to become less and less what he would call the word associated with things outside of themselves. And I feel that there is actually a growth in people wanting community, connection, and association. And this is showing because they're actually saying, I want to call this my church. And so you'll find more and more of the people in your toddler group will want to say, I actually do belong. I belong to whatever your church is. I belong to River Church. I belong to St. Mary's. I belong to whatever church it is that I'm a part of. And from that belonging, we know can grow even more a sense of belief. So we're going to take a little break now so that you can have a little discussion about fringe parents. And then after the break, we're going to come back and we're going to look at the unreached parents and we're going to look at the active Christian parents. So I hope you've got a few headlines from that you can go into the group with, that people are thinking it's church, they're looking into belief and faith themselves, that toddler groups is one of the top things that people are coming to. They're coming regularly and we've got a bigger reach in 2025. That's so exciting than we had in 2019. So a big well done to you, team. Right, marvellous. So I think we did that one. Let me just do great. So wonderful. As Rachel said, now we're going to have a little deep dive. These are parents who are not currently parents with a child under the age of 5 who are currently not engaged or not connected to church. And we wanted to find out a little bit more about how we might connect with them. So first of all, why are they not connected? Well, the first number one reason is I'm not interested. And that hasn't changed since 2019. They're just not interested. That is the main group. But interestingly, some of the others are things we could change. We may not be able to get them interested, but we might be able to with the right personal invite. But I'm not sure if my local church offers any activities for children. So people just don't know what we're doing and what's going on. I've never been invited. That's really interesting because when we see, which was one of the reflections Rachel pulled out, the power of the personal invitation, it's fascinating. 18% of this group just have never been invited. And so that is something we can change. That it's not a priority. I don't want my children to grow up in church. I don't know what to expect. Not convenient times. I don't think my child wouldn't enjoy it. Another one, my local church doesn't offer any activities. So you put that together with not knowing if any churches do. That's quite a lot of people saying they don't know whether a church offers an activity or they do know that they don't. Does that make any sense? So there's actually not enough opportunity. You'd think with all the number of toddler groups we've got going on and activities that there would be for everybody. But there are obviously some people who just don't know or their church isn't offering anything for children under the age of 5. So there we are. That is a challenge to help every church to be involved and to see. Wonderful. But that's why they're not coming. But would they like to be, have they ever been invited? Would they like to be invited? Unreached parents are less likely to have been invited to activities in 2025 than 2019. So that's interesting. Less of them have had an invite now than in 2019. So we've had a growth of people being involved. So that's a really positive. But we've maybe have less of these people who are currently unreached have had an invite. So there is something for us to work on how we might do this. And when we thought we'd like to know, wouldn't this be interesting? How would those people like to be invited? You're going to have, this is a bit of a jaw drop, this is a really interesting one. most of them would welcome. No, sorry, I've got first slide. Most of them would welcome an invite. So almost half of these unreached parents would actually welcome an invite. Yay! So that's really good news. I mean, it's staggeringly good news. Half of the parents with children under the age of 5 who we currently don't have a reach to would like to be invited. So I'm like, I mean, that is get out the party poppers. So of the ones we don't yet know, lots of them would love to be connected to us and would love to be invited. And I love this. They'd actually love to be invited by a letter or a leaflet. You've got to love that, people. So the number one way these people would like to find out about a toddler group is they'd be really happy with a leaflet through their letterbox. I just go, well, we know what we're all going to do going away from this, aren't we? We can all print letters and leaflets to go through letterboxes. I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. So 46% said they'd love a leaflet or through their letterbox. In fact, even more than wanting a friend to invite them, and even more than social media. Again, I think this is almost a reaction to the social media world. People would like something concrete. Maybe they could put a magnet on it and put it on their fridge and know when it's about and when it's coming. But they still would like to be invited by a friend. They'd be happy to be invited by someone in nursery or parents or someone in the community or someone in the family. The personal invite is still in there and it is still strong. Even a poster they'd be happy to know about. 28% said they'd like to see a poster like in the doctor's surgery or even on their street. It's so fascinating the ways that people would like an invite. And if I look down that list, there's so many of those things that we could easily do and take away and get connected to those unreached parents. But the big thing that they want to happen if they came along, which is very similar to 2019, is they want to know they'd be welcomed. And if you look at our extraordinary record on welcome, they would be so welcome. So isn't it interesting that the unreached people are just not sure whether they'd be welcome? And again, they're not sure that their child would fit in. I find that really fascinating. They're the two biggest sort of, if you like, things that we could do to persuade them, and yet we know our welcome would be enormous and we know their children would fit in. So again, something in the way that we invite, even in our posters, even in our invitations, maybe we could work on that together, looking at what would be the best sort of leaflet you could drop through that would help, particularly around these two factors that people need persuading of, that they would be welcome and their children would fit in. Unreached parents are more likely to report knowing another parent of a young child who goes to church regularly in 2025 than they were in 2019. So this is really interesting to me. Less of them have had an invite, but more of them say that they know an active or a Christian, sort of somebody who goes to church. But look at that, there's 65% and 5% who don't know, so I'm just going to include them. There's 70% of them who don't know somebody. So this is where things like a leaflet and something, a letterbox and a poster in a GP surgery could maybe help us to reach some of this 70% group who aren't actually in contact with one of us personally. So we really need to think of how can we take our mission forward and really reach this group. So a little summary, we know that the out of the unreached group, almost half of them would love an invite. They'd be really happy with a letter through the letterbox. They want to know that they'd be welcome and their child would fit in, but they actually don't, many of them don't actually know another parent who is actively part of a church. Great. Okay, so now we're going to have a little quick flick through some of the findings on active Christian parents. So these, if you like, are part of the team and the people who come and the people who need to be mixing and actually doing some of the inviting. So 9 in 10 of our active Christian parents with a child under the age of 5 say they do know, and they do know non-Christian parents with children of the same age. So they are saying they're really well connected. They're also saying that they have been inviting, of those active Christian parents who know non-Christian parents, over 8 in 10 have invited those non-Christian parents to a church-based activity. So that's really wonderful. They are actually reporting the same levels of invitation as we had in 2019. So although our unreached Christians aren't reporting as many invitation. Active Christians are saying they're inviting. So there's something missing, and it's to do with maybe the circles. I'm going to call it the circles of influence, that some of our unreached Christian parents don't know someone to be invited by. And I'm going to do a bit more digging into the background of the data and the demographics to see if I can find out anything of the patterns of who these people are, to see why there is this, if you like, why there is a gap, which I think could be really helpful to us if we're looking at a strategy going forward. Active Christian parents are even more likely to invite their non-Christian friends to Sunday worship. I find that really, really interesting. So 52% of active Christian parents in 2025 said they would actually invite that non-Christian parent straight into Sunday worship. Now, it might be because that's what they're going to, and it's really easy to take somebody with you. But it was a fascinating thing to me. But they are inviting them to other things. But it's 27% who said they'd invite them to toddler groups. And as we're a particular toddler group network, we need to encourage our active Christian parents to be inviting people more to our toddler groups and our toddler group networks. The next slide was really interesting to me. The active Christian parents in 2025 said they felt it was less easy to share their faith with non-Christians in 2025 than 2019. I would have probably, if you'd have asked me beforehand, predicted that going the other way. So I find that really interesting, that there's a little bit more hesitancy among our active Christian parents on faith sharing. So that's something for us to take away, particularly on how we train up our parents in faith sharing, something that actually a lot of us are. I know that Hope EA and the Church of England would all be really active and keen to help people to be able to share their faith with their friends and the people that they know. I've just got a couple more slides. Finally, active Christian parents are more confident in their ability to bring children up in the Christian faith than they were in 2019. So that's really interesting to me. So these active Christian parents are saying that they feel more able to bring their children up in the Christian faith than they did in 2019. Less able to share their faith, more able perhaps to disciple their children in the Christian faith. So again, really fascinating as to what those changes are. And they feel more supported by their local church. So active Christian parents are more likely to feel very supported by their local church in parenting in 2025 than they were in 2019. So that is a really good news. So if you're here and you're a church leader, well done. You are encouraging and you are supporting active Christian parents more actively in 25 to support them in their understanding of faith in God, growing their children up in Christian faith, and supporting them to do so. So that is really good news for the church and what we're doing with the active Christian parents. So that is a summary. I actually had to cut a whole pile of slides out. So what we will do is when we've solidified everything down, I'm going to write some reports. We're going to write a report about each of those segments. We're going to do a deeper dive into the demographics to see if we can work out some of the things that are happening, if you like, behind the scenes that we can throw a light on. And we will get all of this to you so that you can use it where you are. You can use it with your teams, you can use it in your churches, and we hope that it really fuels the mission of the church to reach children under the age of 5 and their parents, so that we can see even more of them reached and a greater impact and more people loving, knowing and coming to follow Jesus. Wonderful. So that is enough from me, and I am going to hand back over to I think it is to Sammy.